Agatha Christie's Murder on the Orient Express, 1934, is one of her most well-known and beloved detective novels, featuring the renowned Belgian detective Hercule Poirot. While the plot itself is gripping and filled with twists, the themes and psychology underlying the story add layers of complexity that elevate it beyond a typical whodunit. This analysis will explore the lesser-known details of the themes, psychology, and underlying ideas of the book, shedding light on the narrative structure, character development, and philosophical questions that resonate throughout the novel. At its core, Murder on the Orient Express poses profound questions about justice, morality, and the consequences of one's actions. The murder of Samuel Ratchet, an American businessman with a shady past, forms the central mystery, but is the moral dilemma surrounding the crime that drives the philosophical exploration of the novel. The key to the novel's complexity lies in the discovery that the victim, Ratchet, was, in fact, the gangster Cassetti, responsible for the kidnapping and murder of a little girl named Daisy Armstrong. The detective's investigation reveals that the passengers on the train all had some personal connection to the Armstrong case, which serves as the justification for their involvement in the murder. In a sense, the novel explores the conflict between traditional legal justice, embodied by law enforcement, and what might be termed personal justice, where individuals take the law into their own hands when they perceive the system has failed. This conflict is embodied in Poirot's own struggle to decide what constitutes true justice. The passengers who conspired to murder Cassetti are not motivated by greed or malice, but by a deep sense of moral outrage. The novel asks the reader to consider whether it is ever morally acceptable to act outside the law, especially when the legal system has failed to deliver justice. By choosing to act as judge, jury, and executioner, the characters in the story engage in a form of vigilante justice, a concept that resonates with contemporary debates about the limitations and flaws of legal systems. Christie explores the idea of duality in human nature, a theme that can be traced through many of her works. In Murder on the Orient Express, the characters are not easily categorized as either good or evil, and this complexity serves to blur the lines between victim and perpetrator. Ratchet/Cassetti, the victim of the murder, is an unsympathetic character. He is a criminal and a murderer, but his actions were previously hidden behind a veneer of respectability. In a similar way, the passengers, who initially appear innocent and unrelated to the crime, are revealed to have been motivated by deeply personal reasons to murder him. Each passenger harbors some form of psychological trauma or moral injury from the past, and the murder they commit can be seen as a manifestation of this unresolved pain. For instance, Mrs. Hubbard, who seems like an innocuous and rather eccentric woman, is revealed to have lost her daughter in the kidnapping orchestrated by Cassetti. This revelation forces readers to reconsider their initial judgments of the characters. The duality of the passengers' actions, both innocent in some respects but guilty in others, mirrors the complexity of human nature itself. Poirot, as the detective, also embodies this duality. He is depicted as meticulous, rational, and often detached, but his decision at the end of the novel to allow the conspirators to escape justice reveals his own moral flexibility. His final decision, choosing not to report the murderers to the authorities, forces readers to question whether the rigid application of justice is always the best course of action. Poirot's actions raise important questions about the nature of good and evil, and whether one can ever truly separate the two. A major psychological theme that runs throughout Murder on the Orient Express is the idea of revenge as a response to trauma. The Armstrong family tragedy, which serves as the motivation for the murder, reveals the deep psychological scars left by violence. The passengers, all of whom are connected to the Armstrong case, are driven by a desire for retribution. The trauma caused by Cassetti's crime was so profound that it reverberated through the lives of the people involved, and each passenger sought a form of personal justice as a way of coping with their emotional pain. The idea of revenge as a psychological coping mechanism is crucial to understanding the motivations of the conspirators. They're not driven by pure hatred, but by the intense psychological trauma of having lost loved ones or having witnessed the destruction of an innocent life. The murders committed by the conspirators can be seen as an attempt to restore balance, to impose a form of psychological restitution on a world that has wronged them. Each person involved in the murder process, in their mind, performs a noble act of restoring justice for the wrongs they or their family suffered. This notion of revenge as a way of dealing with psychological trauma invites readers to consider the costs of unresolved grief. The novel suggests that living with trauma can distort one's sense of right and wrong, and that personal vengeance, even if it leads to justice, can never truly heal the wounds of the past. In detective fiction, the detective often serves as a vessel for revealing the truth. However, Poirot's role in Murder on the Orient Express complicates this traditional narrative structure. Throughout the novel, Poirot insists on uncovering the truth behind the murder, and his investigation methodically deconstructs the false front that each passenger presents. However, at the conclusion of the novel, Poirot uncovers not just one truth, but multiple truths. The truth of the murder is revealed to be far more complicated than he initially assumed, and the resolution comes not through the application of law, but through the decision to conceal the truth in order to preserve some semblance of moral order. Poirot's decision to protect the conspirators by not exposing them to the authorities raises the question of whether truth is always desirable, especially when it could lead to more harm than good. It underscores the idea that the pursuit of truth is not always a moral imperative. Poirot's ultimate choice reveals the tension between the search for truth and the need for compassion, suggesting that truth, while valuable, is not an absolute or always the most ethical course of action. The truth, in this case, is multifaceted, and the decision to withhold it can be seen as an acknowledgement of the complexity of human lives. Another subtle but significant theme in the novel is the impact of class and social expectations on human behavior. The passengers on the Orient Express come from a variety of social and cultural backgrounds, and their actions are influenced by their status in society. For example, characters like the aristocratic Count and Countess Andrenii are shown to be hiding secrets tied to their privileged status, while other characters like the seemingly humble English governess, Miss Debenham, are revealed to have deep connections to the case. The setting of the Orient Express itself is a symbol of class and wealth. The luxurious train, which moves through Europe's grand landscapes, acts as a microcosm of society, where appearances are often deceptive and social norms are challenged. The characters' varied backgrounds and their willingness to conceal their involvement in the murder expose the ways in which social status can shape one's sense of morality and justice. The elite's ability to protect themselves through their wealth, connections, or strategic manipulation becomes another form of psychological and social commentary on the imbalance of power in society. The novel subtly critiques the social structures that allow people to be protected from the consequences of their actions, particularly those who have the resources to hide behind privilege. This is underscored by the fact that the Armstrong case, which motivates the murder, involves the destruction of a working-class family by a wealthy and powerful criminal who is never held accountable. Agatha Christie's Murder on the Orient Express is not just a captivating mystery. It is a profound exploration of the nature of justice, morality, and human psychology. Through its intricate plot, complex characters, and the moral quandaries it presents, the novel challenges readers to reconsider traditional notions of right and wrong. The passenger's decision to take justice into their own hands reflects a deep-seated dissatisfaction with a legal system that, in their view, failed to provide closure. At the same time, Poirot's internal struggle reveals the conflict between the pursuit of truth and the pursuit of compassion. Ultimately, Murder on the Orient Express transcends its status as a detective story, becoming a thoughtful meditation on human nature, trauma, and the complicated dynamics of justice. It is a timeless exploration of the psychological motivations that drive people to make extraordinary decisions in the face of unimaginable grief and loss, and it forces readers to confront uncomfortable questions about morality, law, and vengeance. The novel's layered themes and psychological depth ensure that it continues to captivate readers and offer rich material for analysis and discussion.